I have had a chance to visit with you enough. I feel comfortable calling you Sam instead of officer.
Yes,
But if
please.
that's okay.
Oh, please, please.
Okay,
Yes.
terrific. Well, before we get started in our conversation, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and your journey to being a police officer? Because I find it particularly interesting.
Okay, so my full name is Samantha, actually Samantha Garcia. I prefer Sam because Samantha is like, I'm in trouble here, so I'd rather not do that. I'm going on, what is it, my eighth year? My eighth year is in law enforcement. Yeah, no, I can't say that this was the first career that I had picked for myself or that I even envisioned doing. I was gung-ho about graduating high school and going off to college and pursuing criminal justice, but in a different form. I thought somewhere along the line, whether it be a judge or a lawyer, something around that. I did one ride along with a friend of mine. And as soon as I did that ride along, I knew this is what I wanted to do. So I ended up doing that. But definitely I had my kids first and, decided to do my whole life first. And finally, when I got into this, it was the best decision I've ever made. I'm going, like I said, on 8 years, going strong and happy here. That's why I haven't even chosen to look anywhere else.
Well, what I find interesting about your backstory, like the old days of Hollywood, they discover somebody in the drugstore. You're and I think it's important because the issue of retention and attraction in the police business has really been it's certainly a serious local conversation. It's a national conversation, and I think your journey to where the in between and having kids, where you were first discovered.
I was first discovered at Jamba Juice. I was the assistant general manager. I first started in the North Salinas area. When they promoted me to an assistant manager, they gave me my own store. So we opened up the South Main one. And that is where a bunch of the SWAT guys, I had already seen them at North Main location, but they kind of followed over to the other side since we were more closer to them than them going all the way to North Salinas.
Right.
But yeah, they recruited me from there. As soon as they saw me, I guess they said that they saw the attention to detail, I guess is what they had said. I don't know if that was just a good pitch so that they can get me to sign up, but it worked.
Okay.
It worked. And I had, like I said, one ride along with a friend of mine, and that was it. I was hooked on it. So I put in my resignation with Jamba Juice as soon as I got a conditional offer from the Salinas Police Department, and I've been there ever since.
Well, it was interesting when the first time we met and we were chatting, because there's certainly a lot of conversation over the last several months and years about the shortage of officers. How do we get more? And when I heard your background, it really prompted me to, should we be looking in a lot of non-traditional places? And you acknowledge that, but you said one of the real keys is retention.
It is. I think, at least for me, what brought my attention to here is that a bunch of the officers that I have already known prior to even being officers still are officers right now. And I think, anybody would not want to work in an agency where there's new faces all the time. It's kind of like a revolving door, in and out, in and out. We need to see consistency. We need to see dedication. And I think that first starts with the ones that we have here. So retention is definitely a topic that we should be narrating into it, that we should definitely key into. How do we keep the officers that we already have here, who have dedicated so much already time and effort into this department, and show that, hey, we want you here. You are just as important to us. You are not just a number. And I think that's big. At least for me, being here 8 years, I get it. I don't want to go anywhere. But let's just say I decided I wanted to go somewhere else. I think it would speak volumes if my going from admin going all the way down to us shows, hey, no, that she's not just a number. She's important to us. She's the reason why we got so-and-so as another officer here. We're going to keep her, and we're going to make sure we keep her happy while she's here,
Talk a little bit about the numbers. The current officer count is?
I'm not even sure anymore. I've been trying to keep up, but then we have people retiring and then people going to different agencies. So I think the last time I had the count was 186 or no?
Well, no,
60.
I think the current account is in the 130 range, and the
Yes.
budgeted amount is 159.
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, the 186 number.
Is what we.
Well, it harkens back to the era when I was the mayor, and we actually at one point.
That's right.
So that was back in that 2006 to 2012 era.
About 2012 is what I remember. Yeah.
Right, and then today 130, retirements potentially pending.
Yes.
Budgeted 159.
Yes.
So this becomes a big conversation, and I'm pretty sure Salinas has probably grown a little bit since I was the mayor.
Oh, of course. Yes, it's growing a lot.
Well, what I really find is a showstopper, and it's somewhat anecdotal that it may not be true for every single shift, but the saying that's basically making the rounds that at any given time there are more people on duty at Chick-fil-A than there are patrolling the streets of Salinas.
That is an unfortunate truth. Yes, it's a huge reality.
Yeah.
I mean, me alone, I patrol the north side. Now, I patrol two beats. It's combined into two beats. It's the 3 and 4 beat. So I'm known as Z3, right? And that is everything east from McKinnon Park, takes care of all of the Creek Bridge, El Dorado Park. It goes up where the cutoff line is to the east side, which is on Freedom Parkway. That is a lot of ground to cover.
Right.
So, I mean, I've been lucky enough to be able to manage. I work great under pressure and everything else, but that doesn't mean that that's how I want to handle every shift, right? So sometimes I do have to apologize to people when I get to their calls. First and foremost, I've already learned, let's start with that. I apologize for the delay. I just got on shift, but how can I help you, And people actually think that we just probably ignore the calls, and that's not how we do work here,
right.
And once they see that I'm true and genuine about the fact that, hey, I'm sorry that this was a delayed, but this is what happened, I think they take that in appreciation, and that's why I've been so lucky as not having so many complaints that, hey, this person took way too long on this call or whatnot,
Well, I remember, when folks would talk to me and they would say the police came right away, or it took several hours, and frankly, neither answer surprised me, because if you are dealing with the capacity issue, then you're going to get random outcomes.
Yes, that is true.
And in this case, if you're below the water line, you have to make decisions about what calls you can or can't respond to.
Exactly. Yes.
What I find interesting is and is every police chief I've talked to since I've mayor, and including when I was mayor, they all basically settled on the right numbers about 210, and I'm certainly willing to respectfully challenge that in terms of, well, what about technology? Does that change the game? Are there certain functions that can be offloaded to civilians? That type of thing. But the number basically the needle seems to be somewhere in that area. One of the things I often tell people is, including Acting Chief Murray, though he knows this, and you and I had this, you are guilty of your own success of overachieving. And,
right.
But to your point, nobody wants to have to work like that every shift.
No. It takes a lot out of you. And honestly, me working graves, imagine that. By the time it's like 5:30 in the morning, you're dwindling down.
Yeah,
you're done. You're pretty much done at that time, and you're still trying to catch up with reports and making sure that all your data is entered and, your video footage is uploaded.
Well,
it's a lot.
Yeah, talk about that, because all of that, the regulations, et cetera, they are what they are.
Correct.
But in terms of training and those sorts of things, how does that impact how much time you're actually patrolling? For instance, when we were talking before we started recording, because I remember what I thought were the old days of, every time there was an arrest, you go to drop off at the jail, then you go back to the station, then you got to fill everything out. So, it seemed like a 2 to 3 hour process. And then you kind of indicated, well, things, new technology hasn't necessarily changed the game, because when you first started,
Yeah.
yeah, less time.
Yeah, no, when I think honestly, what you're describing is when someone's in training, you do want to take the time to show them the right way. So yeah, you will take them back to the station. You'll have them in a comfortable position where they can do their work and, make sure they don't make any errors and stuff like that. But, it also has a lot to do with who trained you,
Right.
because I was trained by old school people that, hey, it is call after call after call. So we are going from one call to the next. You are recording, and, we had a little recorder. You are recording your report as you're driving, because this has to do with you multitasking and, so that's where I came in. I came in the time where I could be done with one call. I arrested this guy and I put him, in jail. Now I'm on my way back to the streets instead of going back to the PD. Time permits it, yes, we will go back to the station. But if there's calls pending, we will not leave our beat officers hanging. So we would go to the next call, and I'm recording as I'm driving, and that's where the train keeps going. And I'm thinking of what I'm saying, and I'm making sure that I don't crash into anybody type of thing. So yeah, multitasking was big for me. And now, obviously, that's not the way it is. If we have an arrest, the jail itself, if we arrest somebody, it has to be something good, because if not, we're going to be there for about 3-4 hours, and it's not of no fault of their own. Technology is also evolving within the jail. They do scannings for their bodies and stuff like that, making sure they're not smuggling anything. So it does take a little longer, the process. And let's just say that that's in a good case scenario where there's no medical emergency, that
Right.
this person needs to be attended to, because if that's the case, I have to take my in custody back to jail or to the hospital, get him medically cleared, and hopefully the hospital is not jam packed that I might be there for a few hours,
Okay.
So it does take just that unit, if they don't need a cover unit, but that unit, it takes them out of the game for a little bit. And we're not going to let officers go to other calls where it should be a 2-man call,
Right.
So then you're left with one officer just kind of hanging out, because he can't go anywhere. He can't do anything unless there's another officer available to cover him. So yeah, it does make the calls a little longer sometimes.
Talk a little bit about coverage. How does that work? When the public says there seem to be 5 or 6 officers, the incident may or may not have already been cleared. How does that work?
Well, I know a lot of people just drive by and they see there's so many officers for one traffic stop.
Right.
But the reality is we have a CSI officer, someone who's taking photos. That person gets paid to do that. They have the special skills, the tools, and everything. So we can't just not have that officer respond and we take care of it ourselves. So there goes one officer. We need the initial investigating officer as well as a cover officer to make sure that, hey, this person isn't going to, try to fight or anything like that.
Right.
And so it leaves one officer open to calls. But again, they can't respond to anything by themselves. So instead of seeing an officer park somewhere and not doing anything, this officer might just say, hey, I'm going to go see if they need something. And it happens where I've gone to a call where, okay, I'm not needed, but I'll show up to make sure that they're okay. And then they're all like, hey, I need help with the car. Can you make sure it gets towed and get it out of the roadway? It's a process. I know a lot of people say like, oh, there's officers just standing around. It's not like that. It may seem like that's what we do,
Right.
but we all have a purpose why we're there. We're all
Okay.
doing something. Yeah, it just doesn't, we don't have vests that show, hey, I'm the CSI,
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
I'm the one doing the evidence
Right,
tow.
right.
But the reality is we all have a purpose of why we're there. And I think we've all been really good that, hey, as soon as we're done, let's clear and let's make sure that if there's a call pending and there's another unit available, we can go and take care of it.
Shifting gears a little bit, talk a little bit about the phrase community policing and how that kind of certainly from my experience has permeated the Salinas Police Department for decades. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think we've been doing a lot of like outreach programs that have shown to the community that we're really invested in wanting to, be the top-notch first responders that we can possibly be, So for me, I've been volunteering a lot for that. And it's just because I like to see that our police department is putting themselves out there. I really do. And I like that our, our chief, our acting chief is allowing us to do all this because we don't have the numbers for that right now. We really don't. This is a lot of people coming in on their own time, days off and whatnot. Or for me, that it's not a day off, but I work later on. So I'll take a few hours before I have to feed my children and let's go and take care of that. And I think when the community sees us out there and they see that, hey, we're willing to discuss important matters that you haven't been able to discuss, whether it be at meetings with the city council or whatnot, you bring it to us and we'll try to answer as best as possible. And if they see that we're engaging, they see that we're really wanting to help out, it gives that much more strength to the community to help us out and not see us so much as an enemy. Because I do remember when I came in, I think the first time that I was out on patrol, a little boy flipped a finger at me. And I was like so shocked because that's not the way I was raised, right?
Yeah.
And I was completely in awe because I was like, we're not the enemies here. Why are they, but it's because they don't really associate with officers. They only associate with them when it's a bad moment or, a moment in crisis. They don't really know us that, we're people. We're just people as well. So I don't know. I think honestly, the more that we've been doing to be out with the public, it's been helping a lot. Helping us close cases, helping us with tips, stuff like that. It's just been really good for us lately.
Good. Well, a couple last questions. So you're obviously a Salinian, a Viking.
I am.
What's special about this department?
I don't know. I think for me, this is home. It's always been home. And what I love the most about our agency, I can't even pinpoint it. I really can't. I see other agencies. I've gone to training in other agencies, and they're all well and great. But if your heart's not in it, I don't see it as the great PD that I see my PD as. And I mean, I know we have our flaws. I mean, come on, we all have our flaws. Sure. But I look past that, given the fact that this is home. This is where I grew up. An officer that, taught DARE for me in elementary school just retired a couple of years when I started. Okay. So it's like, it's kind of nostalgic a little bit. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I was certainly always under the impression if you really, though you said you were hooked after a ride along, if you really are drawn to police work, Salinas Police Department is a good place to be.
Oh, of course. It really is. We may not have like a bunch of special assignments and stuff like that, which I hope that if we have the staffing later on that we can go ahead and implement those. But it's growing and it's definitely changing. And I like the change that I've been seeing so far. It's been good.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, we'll close with, as you know, it's political season. And I'm certainly delighted and was honored to get the Police Officers Association's endorsement. So I won't put you on the spot for Dennis Donohue for mayor, but talk a little bit about why. Talk about the SBOA and what it does, and just how that's kind of important to the officers that you don't make those endorsements lightly, regardless of who gets them.
Yeah, no, we don't. We definitely don't. We have a really good group in the POA, and they do their homework. They bring us all the material and say, hey, this is what this person represents. This is what's good for us. This is what's not good for us. So definitely we have a lot of people in the POA that are very dedicated to making sure that we're growing strong and stuff. And not only that we're endorsing someone who's going to be good for the community, for our agency. So definitely I can say that we've all done our homework. So we're right here on board.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, and we've caught that one on camera. But thanks for taking some time to.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Well, no, it was a delight. When we first met a couple of weeks ago, I just said I want to follow up, because I just think I think it's a great story, and you really represent the department and the city so well. So
thank you. I appreciate
Sam,
that.
thank you.
Thanks.
All right. I'll look forward to a ride along with you.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Anytime.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.